Hello and welcome to Hold the Line, second episode of the Top 10. Today we're talking about the top 10 video game heroes of all time. Now, unlike our first list, this time we went by the number of votes each character got. Now let's move forward with number 10. How can you talk about video game heroes without talking about Mario? What makes Mario work is two things: nostalgia and fun. Bottom line, we all know who Mario is. You will play hell finding a person who has never heard of Mario. Frankly, I'm actually shocked Mario isn't higher on the list. However, part of that could be because, as Mario has gotten older, the games have become more repetitive, so older gamers like myself may have moved on from Mario some years ago, while others will continue to stick around as he goes through his adventures. But that is number 10 on our list, Mario. Now let's move on to number 9. Now the hero of Portal isn't really a hero, technically speaking. Chell is just trying to stay alive in a bizarre environment. But what makes her so popular is the fact that the story of Portal, and more importantly her story, is so complex, and yet simple at the same time. You'd have to play it multiple times in order to find out every little thing about the character. And having a character that people have to play multiple times to learn about, it makes you interested in the character, and I can honestly see why she got as many votes as she did. Moving on to number 8. Now number 8 is Lightning from the video game Final Fantasy XIII, 13-2, and 13-3. Now what makes Lightning such a popular character, in my opinion, is the first time Final Fantasy has had a female lead that wasn't so cliched, that wasn't so quote-unquote girly, like it was the first time they tried to have a female lead in Final Fantasy X-2. Her focus isn't going after a guy, her focus isn't one of those cliched things women quote-unquote go after. In fact, in most cases, her focus is saving her sister's life. There have been many video games with a male and female protagonists that have done the same thing. Another thing that makes Lightning a popular character is her gender does not define her. You could turn her into a man or a woman, and it would have the exact same story. There wouldn't necessarily have to be a she's a girl so she does this. Though I'll admit, in the third game, some of the outfits they gave her are a little fan servicey. What I think is the most popular thing about the character of Lightning is, unlike other recent Final Fantasy heroes, she doesn't really whine. She isn't quite the emo, brooding hero that we always seem to get out of Final Fantasy. She's proactive, she's not so much excited, but she understands what she's doing and doesn't want to hear people whine about it. She's the kind of person who tells you, drop your and grab your socks, we shipping out. That's why I like the character, and clearly many of you do too. Let's move on to number 7. Number 7 is Lee Everett from the game The Walking Dead by Telltale. The reason I think Lee Everett ranks so high is because he is a man. He has no special powers, he has no special abilities, he's just a guy who has to survive a zombie apocalypse. It's the same reason The Walking Dead itself has become so popular. And frankly, it's through his eyes that we are introduced to much of the world of The Walking Dead through this game. In particular, his relationship to Clementine, this pseudo-father-daughter relationship that builds up, is something that really does endear you to the character. Lee Everett is the kind of character that really does pull on your heartstrings, and it's one of the few characters that made me shed a tear in a video game. And it's one of the main reasons why I replay The Walking Dead so many times, despite the fact that the replay value is not particularly huge in that game. It's the kind of thing we all aspire to in life, to be that hero, to be that leader. And it's one of the reasons why he's, I think, on this list. Let's move on to number 6. Number 6 is the character Bayonetta from the game Bayonetta. Now this character, honestly, it's more of a fun character than most on the list. As a character, she doesn't take very many things seriously, and her mostly job is to be a tongue-in-cheek type character. She's there to do her job and have fun doing it. And what makes her so popular, I think, with everybody who has played the game is the fact that it takes that classic beat-em-up style game like a God of War or Devil May Cry, but it gives you a hero who isn't quite so serious, who isn't quite brooding all the time, who isn't quite so dark. And while yes, the fan service in this game is over 9,000, it kind of works to the game's advantage because the character is not being so much exploited as much as she's playing along with the joke. And in fact, it's still pretty badass to be able to summon a giant dog head to eat your opponents, even if you have to get naked to do it. On top of that, her story, much like Chell's, is complicated enough you want to play through it a couple times to make sure you're understanding everything. and it really makes me want to check out the sequel when it comes up later this year. I just wish it were inclusive for the Wii U. Let's go on to number 5. Next on our list is Lara Croft. In particular, the remake of Lara Croft. Now, personally, I never played the early Lara Croft games, but the newest one, I think the reason the character has such a surge in popularity is because they took this character who was larger than life, this dual gun-wielding Indiana Jones character, and brought her back down to earth, turned her into more of the roots of the character. Also, it reminds me a lot of an Uncharted game, with that same kind of hero. Because she doesn't have special powers, she doesn't have special abilities, much like Lee earlier. She's just a person. She doesn't have any special powers, except the ability to survive extreme falls, apparently, but that's another thing. And throughout the adventure, you feel for Lara because you see the bad things that are happening to her. Much like with Lee in The Walking Dead. You feel that you want to help. You want to make sure this doesn't happen again. That's why you want to replay the game, or at least why I did. I think that's why Lara Croft has become as popular as she has, particularly this resurgence after the new game. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is Cole McGrath from the Infamous series. Now, what makes Cole such a different character from most of the quote-unquote anti-heroes we see is in his world, the world has already kind of been in ruin. You see that this thing has gone off and his city is pretty much completely wiped out. And it's his job to either let it sink into darkness or try to bring it back to the light. And I like the fact that it does legitimately let you choose how to play the character. You can be the hero, or you can be just this side of the villain. Cole McGrath truly is a character who either dies a hero or lives long enough to see himself become the villain. And it's a fantastic ride to see, and I can really see why so many people decided to vote for this guy. Number 3 is the Dragonborn. This is a character who, frankly, you can form however you want to be. The Dragonborn, or Dovahkiin, is a great character mainly because it can be anyone. It can be any race, it can be any gender, it can be any size. It doesn't matter. What matters is what they do. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Dragonborns are people who are of the blood of Tiber Septim, also known as Talos, because they made a pact with the god Akatosh and was given the dragon's blood. Thereby, they had the power to absorb dragon souls and use their words of power. And in fact, the main character, Dovahkiin, is probably what makes the game so very popular, at least in my opinion. Because you're given these unique abilities, and everybody treats you somewhat differently because you are Dovahkiin. And I like the fact that every person who worships the Dova don't necessarily look at you the same way. For example, the Greybeards have a very different look on the Dragonborn as, say, the Jarls of Skyrim do. The character is a lot more complex, and its very simple design would let you think. And it makes you want to replay as multiple characters just to see what the differences are. Number 2, Solid Snake. Now, Solid Snake, in particular from Metal Gear Solid 4, truly cemented himself as a hero. Mainly because he doesn't see himself as one.
I'm no hero. Never was. Never will be.
That's a big part about being a hero. If you're sitting there, I'm the hero, then you're probably not.